Ebele gave birth to Ekene unlike any other. The night Ekene was born, rain and thunder battled across the skies. Ekene wasn't born alone. He came alongside a small drum clung tightly to his hands. When the midwife saw Ekene, she screamed and flew away. Everyone ran. Only Oma the village widow stayed behind. She lifted Ekene up and said to Ebele, "Your baby is beautiful. But wait, did you say you always feel drum beats in your belly?" Ebele smiled and said yes, mostly at night. Sometimes loud enough that I would even dance. And so, Oma handed Ekene to his mother silently with a smile. By the next morning, rumors had occupied the tiny village. "Have you seen Ebele's child?" A woman whispered to another. "They said he came with a drum." People stayed away from Ebele and Ekene, except for Oma. But as Ekene grew, the drum grew alongside with him. The beats grew louder, that the villagers began to feel disturbed. "This is becoming lousy," a villager complained. When he laughed, the sound was like the drumming of a festival. When Ekene cried, the drums shook the house until pots and calabashes rattled. At night, the sound carried into the forest, and strange spirits began to gather at the village edge, dancing to the verse. The elders became afraid. They whispered, "Ekene is not a child of men. His drum's beat calls the ancestors. Soon, they will come for him, and maybe for us." Mothers even warned their children never to use the route that passes through Ekene's house. Talk less of playing with him. One hot afternoon, four men from the village discovered a lake dangling with fishes in the forest. They rushed home, grabbed their nets happily, and rushed back to the lake. That evening, the men returned with baskets heavy and gleaming with silver skate catch. The people rejoiced, for the feast was plenty. Suns filled the air, fires roasted fishes, and families ate until their bellies were full. But at midnight, when the moon was high and silence wrapped the village, strange winds stirred. Out of the darkness came very tall male creatures, towering, glowing faintly, with eyes like burning coals. They cried out, "You men of the village have stolen from us. You call it fishing, but those you caught were our wives, our children. You have feasted on our family. It is time for us to feast on you." Fear swept through the villagers like cold rain. Such a thing had never happened. The men pleaded, saying, "We will return the fishes." But when the baskets were brought forth, the fairy creatures counted and shook their heads. "You have eaten of them, and so we must take not only you, but your wives and children, to restore what you have stolen." The women wept. The children clung to their fathers. The men bowed low in sorrow. The whole village trembled under the blazing judgment. But then, from the crowd, Ekene stepped forward, his drum slung across his shoulder. His eyes shone with quiet courage. He said softly yet firmly, "If you must take them, then take them. But before you go, allow us to honor them one last time." The villagers gasped in disbelief, but the fairy creatures swayed and nodded. "Of course, honor them, then we shall take them away." And so, Ekene raised his hands and began drumming, not a drum of pains, not even a drum of grief, but a verse so ancient and powerful. It was said to sweep away all thoughts from any stranger who set foot in the land. The sound began, slow but deep, like the heartbeat of the earth. The villagers began to sway. The fairy creatures stamped their feet. The verse grew faster, flowing like a river, cycling like wind. And soon, everyone, villagers, fairy creatures, was caught in the dance. They swayed, they stamped, they clapped, they shook. The sky itself seemed to spin with the verse of Ekene's drum. Then, when the air was filled with sweat and laughter, Ekene stopped. The creatures blinked. They looked around, confused but smiling. One of them said, "What a great hospitality. We came, and you welcomed us with celebration. We are grateful. We shall return to our home, full of joy." And just like that, they bowed, spread their glowing wings, and vanished into the sky, forgetting entirely why they had come. The villagers fell to their knees in relief, praising Ekene, for the boy with the drum had saved them, not with strength, not with weapons, but with the wisdom of his drum beats. Since then, the villagers started coming close to Ekene. No one feared him again. Lovers in dispute asked him to play, and the beats softened their hearts, making anger dissolve into laughter. A grieving widow would sit before Ekene, the drum playing back the soft echoes of her husband's voice, just enough to comfort her spirit. A mother who lost her child would beg Ekene, "Beat the drum, let me forget this sorrow." And with each drop of sound, the grief melted. Ekene's heart was inside the drum, and the drum carried the whispers of the land, the voices of the ancestors, and the tears of the living. The people honored him, and though he lived with the weight of being different, he grew into a wise man who taught the village that sometimes what we fear most is what we need most. What is strange is not always a cause. Sometimes it is a gift meant to guide, to heal, or to protect. Dearest viewer, thank you for watching. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to join this amazing family preserving African folktales.